Hello and welcome, one and all, to Ice Cave Radio, episode 71. Wow, we're in the 70s now. That's crazy. That's a lot of episodes. It's more than a year of episodes, and we're still going strong. Can't wait to get to episode 100. One of your hosts, Doa here, along with the other host, Charmer, and we've got an incredible show today because we've got some exciting news to talk about with the Galactic Championship, the Sector, the regional qualifiers, and then we've got a lot of spoilers to look at for Set 4, and we are going to, after we look at the spoilers that have been revealed, reveal two of our own. That's right. We have two cards to show the world for the very first time, and I'm incredibly excited about them for many, many reasons, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Before we jump into the news and everything, how are things going, Charmer? You just went to your PQ, didn't you?
I did. I had a very up and down weekend, so I had scheduled anyway my planetary qualifier for Saturday, my store showdown, or at least my local one, for Sunday, and I attended the planetary qualifier. Some folks recognized the Ice Cave hoodie I was wearing, said hello. It was greatly appreciated. I had a great time. I was playing the Yoda combo deck, and it was not going well. It was going about the same way that my testing had been going prior.
Well, props for trying at least.
But I did get to do the combo at least once. I had somebody say the words, and I quote, "I have no idea what just happened, but I concede."
It's worth it. It's worth it.
Which is everything you hope for when you're playing a combo deck, I think. So that being said, I was having a lot of fun. Just past like halfway through the event, though, I had to leave early. Even though I wasn't winning, I was going to play through the entire thing. But my youngest son, he has been very, very ill. He fights with asthma. He's got a respiratory thing. And so I also did not get to attend my qualifier on Sunday either, because my wife has, for basically this entire week, a ton of work-related stuff on her end. And so I was doing dad duty stuff. So it's a little bit of a bummer because I was really looking forward to like just a straight weekend of Star Wars, and I only got to do a little bit of it. But I had so much fun when I was playing it.
That's good. I'm sorry it didn't all work out the way you'd hoped, but I mean, getting the combo to go off once, I mean, hey, that's a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So it's also funny. I got the combo to go off a second time actually. But I died when I did it. So that fun interaction was my opponent had played a Crate Dragon, in my combo, I had the ability to heal a ton between redemption and ambushing Luke's and other things. The problem is that I couldn't heal through all of the damage you take, because you take the damage equal to the cost of the cards, right? So because active player gets to stack things through the order of events, I had to heal through it like an extra 26 points of damage, and I was 6 short with the way that it was working out. But I got to do the combo a second time. It didn't win me the game the second time.
Yeah, I can see how Crate Dragon would make playing a ton of expensive cards a little bit more hazardous. But yeah, that's a fun way to end the game, though. You know, I mean, that's at least memorable in itself too.
Fireworks.
Yep. Well, speaking of fireworks, we have got a ton of news and spoilers to look at here today. But let's take a look first at our sector and regional information here on the screen. So they announced a couple of these. The sector qualifiers lead into the regional qualifiers, as I understand it. And so we've got in the U.S. Denver and Richmond coming up in April, in Europe over in Milan, and then Liverpool. And then we go to the regional qualifier in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the U.S., which I'm pretty excited about because I'm from around that area. So I'm really hoping to be at that one. And then in Europe, it's going to be at Lille, France. So cool to have dates now for that stuff. And I mean, I'd love to make it to some of the EU ones, but honestly, like I'm just hoping I can make it to a couple of the US ones, especially the regionals.
I would love to go to all of these. However, I was just noticing the dates. I just remembered May from the broadcast earlier, but now that I'm actually looking at the dates, that's like the weekend of my birthday, that May one. So
it's even better reason to go then.
If we go, we could really tear it up.
Yeah. Well, the May one in Minneapolis or the May one in France?
The May one in Minneapolis.
Oh, nice. All right.
Is my birthday weekend.
All right, let's do it. We'll get
25th.
you some. We'll get you to Minnesota. Get you some walleye. Yeah, nothing like a birthday walleye. Isn't it good? Well, I mean, you're in Michigan, so you probably understand the joys of eating walleye.
Yep.
It is delicious. It's a delicious fish. In case you're curious what a walleye is, it's a fish. It's a fish that lives in the Great Lakes, and it's really delicious, and nobody knows it exists besides people that live in Great Lake adjacent states.
Yeah. Walleye is one of those fish, as is rainbow trout is pretty plentiful, at least over here in Michigan. That's another one that a lot of folks seem to like.
Bass, you got bass.
And then, so I'm trying to think about like my Midwestern foods that when I say it, people like, there's a lot of folks that don't realize there is a freshwater perch. Right. And that's really good. It used to be super plentiful, but it got overfished sadly, but you can still get it. All sorts of good stuff. But walleye is delightful.
For sure. There's bass. There's, can you like muskies? Are muskies good eating? I don't know. Muskies, pikes. I don't feel like they're great.
I have eaten them, but they, I don't like the texture, right? Like it's not necessarily that it's bad. I don't really like the texture. And if you're somebody who is a fisherman and you like catch and try to clean yourself, because their bones are weirdly like super thin, it can also be like really hard to clean it properly and not end up with like tiny little fish bones.
I hate that.
So it's not, I would put it on par with like carp, if I'm being honest, right?
That's
like,
not good.
Well, so here's the thing. Carp is 9 times out of 10 just not good.
Yeah.
But if you get somebody who knows like how to prepare it properly, then it's serviceable. And that's kind of the way I feel about muskie and pike.
Well, so anyway, on that note, Minneapolis, Minnesota, there's going to be a regional qualifier. Go check it out. Get yourself some upper Midwest experience. It's going to be good. Let's take a look at some of the prizing and things as well. We've got a lot to look at. Let's see. Where do we go first? So first off, we've got these playmats, which are going to look really good. There's a cool Fetz fire spray playmat, I guess. And then those are sleeves too. And I noticed an Executor sleeve. You seeing this? That's some card art that shows the Executor. They haven't revealed an Executor yet, have they? I don't think they have.
Yeah, I don't think they have, but I wasn't sure if that was 100% the.
I mean, that's the Executor. That like Star Destroyer is unmistakable. I feel like it has. That is the Executor. So now I'm like waiting. Okay, like where's my Executor card? So but we've got that stuff. We also have let's see. I had this all made a lot more sense when I did it earlier. There we go. Okay. There we go. I don't know why they're down at the bottom of the screen, but there is some of the prize wall cards you have access to, and some of the participation stuff too. Some of the packages include some of these as participation cards, but just a lot of cool alternate border stuff. Admiral Akbar looks really sinister in that one, though. He looks scary actually in that picture.
Yeah, he kind of does. He kind of looks like he's part of some like horror movie vignette. Yeah. Like if you were to draw zombie Akbar, that's kind of how I would envision it.
Yeah, a little bit. I love the Kit Fisto art though. That is a great piece of dynamic Kit Fisto action there. You know.
Yeah, the Kit Fisto. I really like. I was thrown off earlier because when you said Fetz fire spray, you weren't technically wrong, but the art on that mat is technically Bounty Hunter's Quarry. That's what I was looking up when you were asking, because it's the upgrade, the bounty. But of these extended or kind of like alternate ones, the Kit Fisto one I think is really good. I love the Count Dooku one because I'm a sucker for anytime you do good lighting with the lightsabers, and so having the red on his face as he holds up the blade stands out to me. And I also just really like the framing of unnatural life, right? Because that like perspective really just jumps out to me, and especially for an event, because a lot of times, you know, the characters have the best art and whatever, but that unnatural life looks really, really good too.
Yeah, Red 3 as well, I think looks awesome. I'm a fan of that card in general, and so need to get a cool alternate art treatment for that too. But there you go. A lot of stuff to look forward to as far as swag you can grab at the event. That's not even everything. That's what they've shown so far, at least. So we'll have to sort of take a look at what appears down the road. But I think it's time to take a look at some spoilers. There we go. All right. Well, first off, check it out. One of our new leaders that we've seen revealed, and a very exciting one too. Do you want to start us off today?
I do, because I really like this card, and I desperately wanted to like this character. So the reveal is Captain Phasma as a leader card. Captain Phasma is aggression and villainy. On the leader portion, it says action. You can exhaust Captain Phasma if you've played a first order card this phase. Deal 1 damage to a base. And then the epic action is a flip on 5. Becomes a 4/6 ground unit. Has first order and trooper traits. On attack, if you played another first order card this phase, you may deal 1 damage to a unit. If you do, deal 1 damage to a base. So this is going to draw, in my opinion, some really obvious comparisons to Sabine. Probably the closest to a true Sabine comparable that the villainy side or the dark side has had. The flip on 5 is a little bit slower, but I don't think that it's going to be like crazy. I mean, if you really want the fast start, I think you could still play Kylo. But what you gain for just like delaying the 1 turn is that the 6 health is super relevant, right? Because you're outside of takedown range, you're a little bit stickier. And the on attack is also, I think, a pretty big upgrade because you go from just dealing it to the base to a unit and a base.
Yeah.
That's a really strong interaction. If you've ever played with the original Vader leader, it adds up quickly.
Right. And I think this is kind of similar to the original Vader leader, too, in that you've got the ability to damage a unit and a base. There's some more conditions with that, but that also comes along with an earlier flip turn, too, so you can put a little bit more pressure on with this than, Vader, which you have to wait until the 7 resource flip for. So I think it's neat. We've got a lot of first order support as well to cover. I did want to mention the text on the leader side because that did confuse some people. And there was a question asked, and Tyler Parrott responded on Twitter that this was text just to avoid the confusion, apparently, that new players have, that, leaders are deployed and not played. So that's why, even though we know it's deploy and not played, it says if you played another first order card this phase, just to prevent new players from thinking, oh, well, Captain Phasma activates herself. It's to avoid people thinking that you had to have played another first order card. So I'm not the biggest fan of how this was worded, just because I don't like putting text in that assumes players are going to get rules wrong, but is at the same time kind of confusing for players that know the rules, which is where I think this kind of falls into. But it is what it is, I guess. But that's what that means. I know a lot of people were confused about that. Weirdly enough, more experienced players were confused by this than new players, which is the problem with wording it like this. Yeah, I think you generally, like I said, you don't want to put wording on your cards that assumes people are going to get rules wrong. I think you need to have a little bit more faith in your players to maybe get a rule wrong once or twice and be like, oh, I get it now, and then get it right,
Yeah, I was going to say, I would wager that this probably looked different in design and development and testing. Mm-hmm. And then when they saw how folks were reacting to like the Boba Fett leader actions and set 1, for example, and some of those other things, they probably did this thinking that they needed to clarify it. And then now we are where we are, where all of our veteran players kind of know already anyway. But
yeah. And I mean, it just kind of goes back to what I said, where like, yeah, you might make that rule mistake once or twice, but if you're at a local, someone's going to correct you and you're going to be like, oh, okay. And then you know it for the rest of your life. So yeah, it is kind of surprising to see it worded that way, but not a giant deal, but just a little bit puzzling.
I just really quickly, before we move on, want to say Captain Phasma for the sequels is my Boba Fett. And what I mean by that is when you look at the original trilogy, Boba Fett kind of doesn't do a whole lot.
Not much, no.
Really? But he stands around and he has a really cool, intimidating like outfit, and like his interactions are like meant to be intimidating and whatever. And then he also has like a very lackluster ending, right, in Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. And so Captain Phasma was that for me. When I saw Captain Phasma, I was like, that is a cool looking character. I love the chrome design. I don't know why we haven't seen something like that before. She appeared very like imposing and whatever. And I was like, yeah, this is, Star Wars got me again with another cool outfit character. And then she has a very lackluster demise and kind of doesn't do anything throughout. Yeah. So I recognize that she is just Boba Fett, but man, I wanted this character to be so much cooler when I saw her.
Also falls to her doom in a situation where, hey, if they wanted to resurrect her, I suppose you probably could, in a similar way that Boba Fett just happened to get out of the Sarlacc pit, 30 years later or whatever. But But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the card though itself is cool. I'm looking forward to doing some first order stuff with it, and we'll get more into that first order support later. So neat leader. I think it's going to be pretty good. We'll move on to another neat leader over on the aggression side of heroism. I'm very excited for this one. Our second Luke Skywalker leader, finally. But this is the hero of Yavin. This is Pilot Luke. It's a aggression and heroism. As an action, you can exhaust the leader. If you attacked with a fighter unit this phase, deal 1 damage to a unit, so synergizes well with fighters up in the space arena. And then if you control 6 or more resources, you can either deploy the leader on the ground or deploy the leader as an upgrade to a vehicle as a pilot. And if you deploy it on the ground, it's a 5/6 with the text, "This upgrade can't be defeated by enemy card abilities." And then, this is getting into the pilot side of things. If you deploy it as a pilot, crucially, this upgrade can't be defeated by enemy card abilities, so that prevents it from just getting confiscated off. So nice little upside for this Luke pilot in general. And then the attached unit is a leader unit. Great. It prevents it from getting, vanquished or something. The ship itself from being vanquished, rather. And then if it's a fighter, it gains on attack, you may deal 3 damage to a unit. So, Bo-Katan players inconsolable right now because this thing does some damage when you attack with a tribal trait. And then on the flip side, it does 3 damage. But just think about putting this thing on an A-wing even. Let's take it to the very basics of heroism and aggression. You're going to be hitting for 7 damage. You're going to have 8 health. And you're going to do 3 damage to a unit. This is potentially the best pilot leader we've seen yet. I think just in terms of usability, right? In terms of being able to play it out, make sure you get value out of it. This is going to be a scary one, especially in limited. And yeah, it is a common leader too. So expect to see this one a lot in sealed and draft and things like that.
Yeah, that's what stood out to me. The fact that this is the heroism aggression common leader, I think that this one is very, very strong and limited, specifically because when you're looking at some of the common fighters that are not even, in other traits, but even just in heroism aggression, I immediately thought of the new Y-Wing.
Yeah.
Because that's also a fighter. And so as active player, when you get to stack the effects, you can have them essentially take that 3 indirect damage first. And then it might allow you to, on attack, destroy something that has more than 3 health, depending on how they assign the damage. Or they'll take additional damage on their base, right? If they're trying to keep a unit alive, and then you get to turn around and you're still dealing, 5 more damage as well. So I think that this is one of the better common leaders for this set. I think it's going to be a limited all-star. And I do think that we might see this depending on how the meta goes. This is interesting, right? So if it ends up being a pilot leader heavy meta where you have a lot of people potentially running upgrade removal, then I would expect Luke to start performing very well because he has that additional text where he can't be targeted by those things, right? He's not going to get hit by a disabling Fang fighter, for example. Mm-hmm. Whereas if the rest of the pilots are less popular and people are not running at least main deck upgrade hate, then I would expect some of the other more impactful leaders to do well, just because they don't have to worry about being one and done. But if we do have a situation where a lot of the new leaders catch on, I would actually expect Luke to be a great alternative in that meta because of that additional text.
Yeah. Seems really good. I mean, you can build a good heroism aggression space deck today. There's just a lot of support for it already. So getting a leader like this to attach to it, I think it kind of takes it to the next level, and I'm excited to see what people can do with it. Let's move on to an interesting new base.
Yeah, I love this, and that's no shot considering I loved the kind of the other end of the spectrum of bases. So our new base is Data Vault. It is a 33 health command base.
Yeah.
And what you get for 33 health is your minimum deck size is increased by 10 cards. So we have one base that reduces your deck size so that you can increase your consistency. And now we have another one where you get additional health, but you increase your deck size by 10 cards. And what I really like about this is that because it's in command, you could have situations where the extra 10 cards is not nearly as big of a deal, because when I think about a lot of the stuff that exists in command, there's a lot of search options.
Exactly.
So you lose your overall draw consistency, but whether you're playing Darth Vader or it's U-Wing, reinforcement, or whatever, you get the option to dig pretty often in command. And so I do think that one of the easiest ways to mitigate that is to run some of those cards.
Yeah, I mean, both sides have it too. I mean, you've got U-Wing reinforcements, but you've also got the Darth Vader legendary from set 1 on the dark side of things too. But yeah, recruit. There's a bunch of other stuff with that too, and there's ways to bring cards back from the trash as well. So if you don't want something from your deck, you can also refill your hand with that kind of thing. So I don't think it's really that big of a penalty, honestly. The big issue there is consistency, since it's a game where you can only have a maximum 3 copies of a card in your deck. So it does reduce that, but I don't think 10 cards is enough to really cause that much of an issue, honestly. And going up to 3 extra health, probably worth it. I think it's great for Twin Suns for sure. But, but again, we want to keep Twin Suns casual, right? But, I'm pointing at my shirt for those of you who are just listening that says keep Twin Suns casual. But I think just in constructed and premier play, I think it could see a spot too. I'm excited to see what people can do with it, which is something I'm probably going to say about every single card we're going to look at. All right. And, well, here we have an event. It is Vigilance, Heroism, cost 2. It says, you're all clear, kid. It is a gambit. And it says, defeat an enemy space unit with 3 or less remaining HP. Great for 2. If you do, and an opponent controls no space units, you may give an experience token to a unit. So it is thematic in that if you clear their side of the board in space, you get to give experience. You get to buff another unit, a.k.a. Han, removing the TIE threat from Luke, enabling him to complete the trench run in the very first Star Wars film. But the art on this kind of makes me think Han Solo is like working in a call center or something, and he's like, and if you accept this wonderful deal today while we're on the phone, we'll throw in a great tote bag as well. That's
we've been trying to reach you about your ship's extended warranty. That's
Exactly.
what his face says to me.
Yeah. Would you like a timeshare on Naboo? But so it's a great card. I think it's a good card, but the Han Solo's face makes me chuckle. He also appears to have gray hair, so he's aged very, very quickly in this one.
This card is one of those things that, again, it's meta dependent, but has the potential to really be a meta all-star. Again,
totally.
If a lot of the new stuff, kicks off with a blaze in the early portion of the set 4 meta, and we got a lot of space units like I would expect, this is a very cost-effective way to keep control of some of those early plays. And it's not even like, at a minimum, you're probably paying 2 to get rid of a 2-drop, which is already nice because a lot of times you still have to wait a turn, right? When you think about your current answers for like an A-Wing, for example, it's a lot of times waiting for like, resource turn 3 so that you can open fire it. But this is, they play A-Wing and then you can immediately hit with the all clear kid, even if you don't get the experience token, just to stay like at parity, which is what you need to do if you're a vigilance control deck.
Well, this is
then when you...
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, then when you factor in all of the tokens that are potentially coming in this set as well, where like at a minimum, it's get rid of a token and give something, potentially an experience on top of it. I think that we could still see a lot of value out of this card. I'm a big fan.
I think it's a great card for sealed as well. I'm definitely going to be looking for this in my sealed pools when we get to the pre-release time for this set. Just because it's another one of those ones where it's like you said, it's a great turn 1 play to take out whatever ship they play. It's a ship heavy limited environment. I think it'll be good. Next.
Hey, speaking of early ships that you might want to destroy, our next card that was revealed was First Order TIE Fighter. This is a 1-cost space unit that is command and villainy. As a 2/1 stat line, is First Order, vehicle, and fighter. But the text says, while you control a token unit, this unit gains raid 1. So it's a 2/1 space unit, but if you have at least 1 token unit, and the cool thing is it doesn't even have to be like a TIE fighter. It could be a battle droid, it could be a clone trooper, whatever. This goes to essentially a 3/1 space unit when attacking, and for 1 cost, that's one of the most cost-effective like 1-drops we've seen in space since the game started, right? That's really, really strong.
It's kind of support for like battle droid heavy decks too, when you think about it. So it's obviously going to be good in Phasma, but I think it's just going to be a decent card in general for certain archetypes. All right, let's move on to Captain Phasma herself, the uncommon unit this time around. 5 cost. It is command villainy. Remember, the leader is aggression, so you've got 2 different colors represented for Phasma here. 5/6 stat line, pretty good. And then when played / on attack, you may give another first order unit +2/+2 for this phase. So it's kind of like the Holdo and the Wat Tambor ability on a card instead of on a leader. And I think it's fairly strong. The fact that you get this when played, I think is really, really good. You get a 5/6 for 5, plus you get to buff something else by 2, so you're getting like 7/8 in stats essentially on the board as long as you've got another unit out there. So it has to be another first order unit to be sure. I mean, there is a caveat there, but I think if you're playing a first order tribal deck, it looks like they really want to push you in the red-green direction, and I think this card is a must include for that.
Yeah, I am 100% with you on the when played is really what pushes this card over for me. If this was strictly on attack, I would say it's probably too slow. You're going to play it and essentially kind of get a vanilla 5/6 where you might get future value.
Yeah.
But because you can get it right when you play it, not only do you get that immediate value as far as attacking, but a lot of times when you can play it with initiative and catch an opponent off guard, you might have pushed something they were planning on either trading into or removing out of removal range, right? We just saw, the clear, you're all clear kid. If you have a ship that's got like 2 health, but you play Captain Phasma as your initiative play, suddenly it goes up to 4, and then that's no longer in striking range for that event. So just getting this with the when played is, I think, a really big deal.
Yeah, totally. It does. I think you hit it right on the head, right? Where it's like it pushes this card from decent, it's okay, to like, this is a good card. That one play makes a big difference. Legendary.
Yeah, I think we talked about this one last week, if I remember. Right?
I went back and looked, and we didn't actually, because I thought that too. But
I swear I remember us talking about how this was,
unless it was misordered, but we can just go over it real quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe we did. I don't know. It gets hard in spoiler season when I'm putting everything back in there, but I went and checked, and it doesn't seem like we did, but I don't know. Maybe I missed that part of the VOD. Anyway.
The card is Turbo Laser Salvo. It is
we definitely did talk about this, didn't we?
Yeah, command event tactic that is very similar, but not exactly the same in design as Overwhelming Barrage. So,
we definitely talked about
last week's episode to hear our analysis of that.
I've got a lot going on. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about General Hux. 2 cost, aggression, villainy, 1/4 stat line, first order and official, which again, if red-green is a stat line, this is another Royal Guard potential target, right? Official. Each other friendly first order unit gains raid 1, so that's a nice little bonus there. And then action, exhaust General Hux. If you played a first order card this phase, draw a card. And that's pretty awesome, honestly, because sure, 1 attack, nothing to write home about, but General Hux getting to generate card draw every turn until somebody deals with him at 4 health, that's an annoying thing for your opponent to have to handle. So I really like this card.
I think that this is a great kind of support card for the first order deck. Totally. You think about like when set 1, we had, for lack of a better term, pretty vanilla support cards for our different tribal traits. It was either Veers with a standard +1/+1 or Dodana with a standard +1/+1. This one is, I think, in that same vein where it's not somebody who's meant to be the main part of the action. He's supposed to buff the rest of your squad. But I love this design more because it's going to force your opponent to decide, okay, do I want to, take time to clear this? Like, yeah, it's just a 1/4, so it doesn't seem super threatening, but all the other first order units are getting raid 1. That's super relevant. And then, as you said, if they're not attacking with this and they're just using it to draw cards, and it's sounding like if you're playing that Phasma first order deck, and since we've seen the 1-drop TIE Fighter now and some of those other cards, it could be a swarm deck where that one extra card is very legitimately an extra threat every turn. And then suddenly Hux is, more than just an annoyance. Like, he's an actual problem.
Yeah, I mean, I play Poggle the Lesser in my Wat Tambor deck a lot, and that's a 1/4 with an upside like this too, and it is satisfying to see people have to use attacks on it or use cards on it to get rid of it. So I love that this falls right in with that 2 cost 1/4, has a great supportive upside, and makes your opponent spend something to get rid of it kind of card. I think it's great for somebody must really like the First Order over there, because they got some great stuff coming this set, such as
Special Forces TIE Fighter. This is a 2-cost space unit. It is aggression and villainy. Has a 2/3 stat line. Has the all-important First Order tag, so First Order vehicle fighter. When played, if an opponent controls more space units than you, ready this unit. I really like this card as a common. This card is just a common, and I think that I want to play this in limited. I want to play this in constructed. It is everything that you want as far as the tags go, and it gives you, pretty standard stat line with relevant tags with upside, right? Like when you consider that ready this unit, like, yeah, obviously you could turn around and use it to maybe ambush something because your opponent has more space units. But what you can also do is use this as a poor man's Millennium Falcon, right? When you think about extended long games where, if you're going aggressive and you're attacking your opponent's base and then they're trading into your units to get value trades, you might be left in a situation where you have less space units, but the ones that they have are all exhausted because they traded into yours. And now you can very cheaply play this, right? And then get 2 extra damage in, or 3 if you've got a Hux or whatever. So I really like this card.
Yeah, I think Hux is a great one to bring out with this one too, because it essentially can give you a 2-cost 3/3, right? In space on your quote unquote first turn, in that if you play Hux on your first turn, they play a space unit for their unit, and then they have the initiative and they play another space unit for their second turn. You play this, they have more space units, you get essentially a 3/3 attacking in space. So I think it's going to be good. It's one of those cards where you don't feel bad drawing it late game, because again, it's something where you can maybe get some upside out of it. So yeah, another strong common, another great piece of First Order support. Let's move back to the heroism side of things for a moment with Frisk. 2-cost heroism, aggression, 3/2 stat line on the ground, is a pilot as well for 2 resources and aggression and heroism. When played as an upgrade, you may defeat an upgrade that costs 2 or less. Gives +2/+2 as a pilot, by the way, but defeating an upgrade that costs 2 or less, that includes a lot of pilots that we've seen, because remember, pilots are upgrades. So sure, you can get rid of shields, you can get rid of XP, but you can probably get rid of a lot of pilots in this set too. So kind of a neat little pilot that snipes other pilots. So I thought this was a cool little uncommon.
Yeah, you can get rid of stuff like the BB-8s and R2-D2s that we've seen. Some other pilots as well that may or may not have been revealed yet.
Well, we'll talk about them today either way.
We'll talk about them today either way. That's your teaser there. I really like this. It's an uncommon, but it's a really strong uncommon and limited. I think that when you start considering constructed, it will probably be a sideboard card. I think that if we have a very upgrade heavy meta, what you're looking at is probably running like Fang Fighters and this, just so that you increase your chances of hitting it when relevant. I think the biggest thing that holds it back for being more than just a sideboard card in constructed is that it's New Republic in pilot and not say like Rebel, where you get some additional synergy if you deploy to the ground in a pinch. But overall, I think this is just a really well designed card, and I'm kind of hoping that we get a character at some point in the future that's like STAHP or something, because I want to run a deck that's Stop and Frisk.
Oh no. Well, there's your dad joke for the week, I suppose. But yeah, I think he's gonna be good. I think he's another great one for limited, man. Seeing him in sealed would make me feel quite happy, right? Because just being able to snipe another pilot or something, or even just get rid of a shield, I think is gonna be good. Let's move on to hey, what do you know? Unmistakable mustache.
Biggs Darklighter. They'll never stop us. So Biggs is a 3-cost heroism aggression unit. If deployed to the ground, has a 3/4 stat line and no other text. However, Biggs can be deployed as a pilot for just 1 resource. Again, aggression and heroism. When deployed as a pilot, is a +2/+1 stat line. However, you get a lot of text as a pilot. If attached unit is a fighter, it gains Overwhelm. If attached unit is a transport, it gains +0/+1, so it goes up to a 2/2. If attached unit is a speeder, it gains Grit. And that provides with a lot of flexibility. And if I'm being honest, when I'm thinking about playing against this card, you're going to have to pay attention to their vehicle choices on the board and really start to play around like, okay, what if, he puts this on a speeder and the grit suddenly sends, it over the top in terms of like the additional damage, right? Because that grit is kind of the X factor. Similarly, on stuff like a fighter, it could become like, yeah, I have a Sentinel, but what if Biggs ends up on an A-Wing? And then suddenly with the A-Wing getting overwhelmed, it's swinging for 5. That's really, really strong.
Yeah, for sure.
I really like this card.
Me too. I like the versatility of it. Again, I think it's something that could be worked into a lot of like the Luke deck we just saw, the Wedge deck as well. I think we're getting to the point where we can do some kind of like cool Star Wars fantasy decks too, where it's like we have Luke on his X-Wing, Biggs in his X-Wing, and we can kind of recreate the Trench Run squad. We need a Jack Porkins card now at this point. Show me Jack Porkins. Said no one ever in the history of mankind before me. There you go. But I want to see a card for Jack now. Let's move on to Red 5, running the trench, Luke's ship. Yeah, 3 for a 3/4 in space. Always a good stat line there. Aggression and heroism as well. Rebel vehicle fighter. And on attack, you may deal 2 damage to a damaged unit. So guess what, Charmer? If you have the Luke leader on Red 5, you attack, Luke deals 3 damage to a unit, and then because it is damaged, you can do the other on attack from Red 5 and do another 2. So Luke on Red 5 lets you potentially do 5 damage to 1 unit. And remember, this doesn't specify just space, and neither does the Luke leader card too. So you can actually have a pretty substantial way to hit the ground with this Luke leader as well, especially on Red 5. So I think a lot of Luke players are going to be trying to play this and then get Luke on it. But even if you don't, it's still just, I think in a vacuum, just a good card too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we're going to probably say this feels like all podcast episode today, but when you open this in limited, it is just an uncommon, and it's going to be a really strong uncommon.
Oh yeah.
3 for a 3/4 is, that sweet spot for stats, but this is a very relevant on attack. And the other thing, again, you've got the Luke interaction, but we've already seen a lot of the indirect damage in this set as well. And so when you start throwing that around again, maybe your turn 1 is that new Y-Wing. And if somebody throws some damage on a unit to prevent it going to base, well, now Red 5 can take that out potentially as well.
Yep. I think one thing to keep in mind with this set when you're playing limited or afterwards when people are making a premier deck, like you really need to pay attention to when your opponent's pilot leader flip turn is. Not necessarily to have like an upgrade removal ready, but to just try your hardest to clear all the ships on the board, right? Because a readied ship on the flip turn is what allows that pilot leader to attack and do damage. If they have to play a ship on the flip turn, then they don't get to attack with their leader if they play it as a pilot, right? So try your best to clear all the ships from their side of the board the turn before their flip turn. I'll tell you this now, that'll be a good way to save yourself a lot of pain if you're playing against a pilot leader.
Yeah, and of course, there's always the asterisk, right? The caveat is, unless you're playing against, say, Heroism Cunning, I do think the original Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, that is one. Yeah,
stocks are going to go up.
I mean, there's exceptions.
Also, I was going to say also that one unit that we were just talking about, right? Your opponent could clear out all of your space units trying to prevent your leader flip, and then they're like, oh, but by the way, you have more space units than me now, so this enters play ready.
Or Fett's Fire Spray too, original Fett's Fire Spray with the new Boba Fett leader. Yeah, that's another thing. So know the leader you're playing against, obviously. Know if there's a possibility of that happening, but that's a good tip, I think, especially in limited, where you're not going to run into any set 1 Millennium Falcons or set 1 Fett's Fire Sprays, that kind of thing. Moving on, though.
All right, so everything is so on theme, and I love this. The next card we're going to talk about is Trench Run. So as you said, we're getting to build our kind of fantasy decks. Trench Run is a 1-cost event. It is heroism and aggression. Attack with a fighter unit. For this attack, it gets +4/+0. That is a lot of additional stats for just 1 cost.
Seriously.
However, it also gains on attack, discard 2 cards from the defending player's deck. Deal unpreventable, and that's important, deal unpreventable damage equal to the difference in the discarded card's costs to this unit. So the idea is you pay 1 and you get to attack with the fighter unit immediately with +4. And that can be a lot of potential damage, especially if you're trying to close out the game.
In a lot of cases, yeah.
Mm-hmm. However, just like with the trench run, your unit has to survive it to get the payoff. So on attack, you're going to have your opponent discard the top 2 cards of their deck. Now, if they're both the same cost, right, they discard, say, like 2 cards that cost 3, your unit's going to take 0 damage because it's looking for the difference between the costs. But if they reveal a 1 cost and a 5 cost, then your unit will take 4 damage. And if that's enough to destroy your unit, well, because it's on attack, it's going to die before it gets to deal the damage. So that is like the risk reward of the trench run. But I love the way this card is designed. I love everything about it, if I'm being entirely honest. The art is really good.
Yeah.
The way that it really feels like, the best I think you can do in the Star Wars Unlimited's game mechanics to run something so risky but with such a high payoff. I just really dig this.
Hey, I mean, risky but with a high payoff. That's the trench run in a nutshell, right? I mean, they were trying to get the high payoff of destroying the Death Star, and it was a big risk flying into that trench. So I think it's perfect. I think it's on point. Great rare. I think discarding 2 cards is nice. I mean, if you're playing mill, you can just kind of put it in this and not really care if the attack goes through if you're just trying to take 2 cards away from them. So it's a neat card that I think is going to come back, as the game goes on. Let's move on, though, to Fight Fire with Fire. This is an aggression-only gambit. Costs 1 resource. Choose a friendly unit and an enemy unit in the same arena. If you do, deal 3 damage to each of them. So you do have to damage your own unit, but hey, if you've got a big unit that has grit, that might not be too bad. And then dealing 3 damage to an enemy unit is solid, too. So, yeah, I think it's going to be... it's circumstantially usable. I think it really depends on what is in your deck, how great this card ends up being. But I think it's not terrible,
Yeah, I don't think that it's terrible at all. There's a lot of ways that you can mitigate it. So this is not preventable damage. Excuse my mouth. So if you've got something with a shield, you could take advantage of that. If you have something that has like a standard low attack, high health, so you've got an R2D2 1/4 1-drop, for example, I would very happily just deal 3 to it if I can turn that into 3 damage on something else, because it's going to take me 3 turns of, swinging with R2D2 to even attempt to do that.
Yeah.
Somebody like the Client, for example, can take this card twice, right, with the shield and then with the 5 health. And obviously, if he's putting a bounty on something and then doing this, you're also potentially getting the health back. So I do think there will be positions where this ends up being a very cost-effective card. You just kind of got to keep an eye out for when that might be the case.
Yeah, feels like Kira support a little bit too for that reason, but it's neat. All right, we got this is you. Go ahead.
Yeah, we got Moff Gideon. Oh, this is me. Oh,
no, I mean it's your turn. It's your turn.
Yeah. Just saying, if I was as handsome as Giancarlo, I'd be excited. All right, Moff Gideon.
Give you a dark saber too.
Yeah. Moff Gideon is a 4-cost cunning villainy ground unit. It is a 5/4 stat line, Imperial and official. So again, turning on the Royal Guard if relevant. It also says when this unit deals combat damage to an opponent's base, each unit that opponent plays this phase costs 1 more. So it's okay stats, right? Like 5/4 is pretty solid for a 4-drop.
Yeah, it's good.
The 4 makes it a little susceptible to maybe being counter traded into, but it's threatening a lot of damage. But oh boy, if you have initiative and you can just whack their base early with this, making all of the units that they play for the rest of the phase cost 1 more can be absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it's one of those cards where it may not do anything the turn it comes into play, but it really warps your opponent's decision-making for the rest of that phase at least, right? Because they need to deal with it, If they don't, things are going to get real bad. +1 cost to everything, +1 cost to, their units, rather, the next turn is potentially devastating. So even if it's like the type of deck that just plays 1 big unit, a lot of times you're playing that unit on curve. So +1 cost means you can't play it. You can't play that Avenger. You can't play that Crate Dragon. So it's something that, it's a card, like I said, that really has a big effect on your opponent's decision making. And so I like it for that reason. I don't know if it's going to be like the biggest meta card, but I think potentially it could see play in some decks. Han Solo, a legendary Han Solo card. He is a pilot, cost 5, cunning heroism, 4/5 ambush on the ground. But if you play him as a pilot, he only costs 2 and Cunning Heroism, 2/3 stat line for whatever he pilots, and then when played as an upgrade as a pilot, you may attack with the attached unit. If it's the Millennium Falcon, it deals its combat damage before the defender. So that's kind of neat because we've got a few different Millennium Falcon versions already, and being able to attack with any of them and not take combat damage back potentially is great, right? Because if you take out that other unit, you just don't take damage back. So I think it plays well with the existing kind of things that Han Solo cards do, and just kind of takes it to the pilot arena. So I think it's a neat legendary. I think it's definitely going to see some play.
Oh, I think it'll see play for sure, especially when you kind of go with the combo of, if you're running the original, 3-4 legendary Millennium Falcon, a lot of times folks were winning by, like, you play that and then maybe you surprise strike it for that extra damage. Worst case scenario, this is just like 3 more copies of surprise strike for you, because it doesn't even have to target another unit. It just says if you do, it deals combat damage before the defender. But this is still, you pay 2 and it's 2 instead of 3, but you also get that permanent +2/+3 on your Millennium Falcon going forward. It just gives you a lot of ways to make sure you get that burst damage when you're trying to close out a game. I think this card is very good. And honestly, the 4/5 ambush is good enough that when you're playing him on the ground, it's not nearly the feels bad that some of the other pilots are.
Yeah, I think it's a really good card with a lot of upside. Even paying 5 for a 4/5 ambush on the ground in a pinch is something that could be pretty strong. So it's got that little bit of versatility to it too. The art kind of makes me think that Han Solo, like, he doesn't remember the controls on Millennium Falcon. Like, it's one of it's the Amnesia episode or something like that. And he's like, is this one to go to Lightspeed?
Well, he's actually trying to do his best because he's used to working either alone or with Chewie. And I think this is at a point when he is first learning to work with others, because I did notice this is a Han that has the Rebel tag, right? A lot of times he just has Underworld, doesn't have the Rebel.
Oh, that's a good point.
But this is a Rebel Han, and that is also very relevant when you consider some of those Set 1 cards.
It's a great call out. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Don't get a lot of those. All right, another legendary,
and this is another one that I am just a big fan of. When I saw this, I almost did a double take. I thought it might be like a custom card. Radiant 7 Ambassador's Arrival. This is a 7-cost space unit that is just cunning, so it can play both sides. And it has a 5/6 stat line. It is a Republic vehicle capital ship. Each enemy non-leader unit gets -1/-0 for each damage on it. So each enemy non-leader unit, not even space unit, just straight up every enemy non-leader unit gets reverse grit, essentially.
Yep.
Then, if that wasn't good enough, when played, deal 5 indirect damage to a player. So if they spread that damage on their units, then their units get powered down. If they take it all on their base, then you suddenly got a source of like burst damage as a cunning player, which is really nice. When I think about all the ways that this could warp a game, this is kind of crazy. And then again, because it's just cunning, when I think about, okay, this could go in Han 1, because it's 7 and it's cunning and it's right kind of on that line where you might want to consider playing it. It could also go in the new Piet decks that care about capital ships and things that cost, a bit more expensive, but you get that payoff. There's just a lot where I want to use this card, and it feels like it's good every place I want to use it.
Totally. I mean, just by playing it, you get to enable a bunch of potentially really good trades where you don't take a whole lot of damage back, and then the 5 indirect damage is icing on the cake. I mean, to me, this is kind of the embodiment of a strong legendary card, right? Where it's just going to have a big effect the turn you play it, and that's about it. It's just a strong card, right? And it's a little bit of a level up from your average rare or something, So I think this card is great. I think it's definitely going to see some play. I look at this and I'm like, all right, well, we can bring this back into even like Jyn Erso, right? Where it's like she plays all about, reducing the attack on the other side and creating value trades. And this could be something that helps you kind of finish up grabbing that board control. So it's neat. I won a local with Jyn Erso once, by the way. It's she's not great, but not as bad as you think. Moving on to we got to flip this. Hold on. Can I do that? Transform.
Do a barrel roll.
Do a barrel roll. Oh, no. I didn't click the right thing. Hold on. Transform.
Something else did a barrel roll.
We can edit this out. Oh, what? Why can't I actually click the thing I'm trying to click in OBS? Spoilers. All right. Transform. What else did I rotate just now? That's what I'm wondering. All right, there we go. There's Darth Vader. I'm going to leave him down the corner there. A new leader. That's right. Check it out. I mean, we're not revealing this, but you've already seen this, but I'm excited about it. This one is awesome. A Force Imperial Sith Pilot Vader from the Trench Run, Victor Squadron Leader, Action Exhaust. If you attacked with a non-token vehicle unit this phase, create a TIE Fighter token, one of those 1/1 space unit tokens. So straight up, just make a token. I love it. I love that it's in command. I've been playing a lot of Wat Tambor double command and playing around with making a bunch of tokens. I think it works very, very well. And so this is like a space version of it that might even be better. So I'm extremely excited about this. Let me unrotate it so we can flip to the next one. Let's see. Counterclockwise. There we go. As we look at his leader side, on 6, he flips as a 5/6 on the ground. Great. But as a leader unit on a ship, when deployed as an upgrade, create 2 TIE Fighter tokens. And he gives +5/+5. So massive stats to whatever you put him on. And he creates 2 more TIE Fighter tokens. I think it's great. I think it's awesome that we have a leader that really supports kind of the Star Wars fantasy of TIE swarm stuff. And putting it in command, I think, is perfect. I'm so excited about this leader. What do you think?
I love this leader. I think that it's one of the kind of strongest swarm-oriented leaders that we've potentially ever had in this game. And I say that because a lot of our other ones, when you are trying to build low to the ground, they do something where either the leader itself gets a bonus or the units you play get a bonus, but it doesn't help you go that much wider. The closest that we've had is something like a Captain Rex, for example, that we just got in set 3. But even when you look at Captain Rex, there's an additional cost involved. Whereas with this one, as long as you attack with the non-token unit, and now it does have to be a vehicle, but as long as you do the attack, you don't need the extra resource. And that is, to me, the big deal when you're factoring in costs and you're trying to, build that swarm. Every time you have to pay for more units, it's, well, I could pay for one for my leader, or I could just play another one from hand. But when you don't have to pay the resource cost and you can just be rewarded for doing what your deck already wants to do, suddenly you get those TIE Fighters, you get those tokens, and that's where it really shines. So
yeah,
we've already seen a lot of 1-drops that are, non-vehicle tokens, right? We talked about one recently revealed, that First Order TIE Fighter. We also have to factor in that it's anytime that they attack. So even when you start looking at some of the maybe underutilized cards, there was the ATST, and then there's the Skiff, right? Where these are vehicles that also have ambush. Might not seem like that big of a deal, but when you can do the ambush and then also trigger your leader, you're getting that extra token on the board. So I'm really excited to build around this.
Yeah, me too. There's a lot of possibilities with this. Just like thinking about cards we saw earlier, like Kijimi Patrollers getting the TIE Fighter and then a 1/1 token as well. And so if that fighter lasts the next turn, that activates, that enables another token to be created. If they take it out, at least you've still got the TIE token. You've got stuff like the Fetz Fire Spray from this set, which is a 4/4 that is a ship that has a good chance of surviving to where you can put Vader on it. Imagine that becoming a 9/9 now with all the damage upside that it has. So I think there's a lot of stuff, but that's not all, Charmer, because we've got some support for the Vader deck already that has been revealed this week, such as, not this one, we'll get to a little bit later, but this is another awesome card. So I mean, you could build the Vader one in blue, but I think Iden Versio, this brings in a whole new idea for like deck building. This and the next card, but go ahead and check it out.
All right, so Iden Versio, this is another one that I'm just absolutely jacked to build around and talk about. Iden is a 4-cost villainy vigilance unit. When deployed to the ground, is 4/3 shielded. As a pilot, can be deployed for 3 resources, again, villainy and vigilance. When this upgrade attaches to a unit, give a shield token to that unit, and you get the +3/+3 in stats.
Yeah.
This is really versatile. Again, it's going to look really boring, right? When you look at it, you're like, well, it's just a 4/3 shielded unit. And when you play it on something, it, gives stats and a shield. What's to be excited about? But it's an Imperial that's relevant, but also when you factor in that it's giving whatever you're putting it on a shield token, and I know that there are other cards that have been revealed where specifically this says when it attaches to a unit. It's not when this is played, it's when this upgrade attaches to a unit.
We'll
so when you factor in things that let you move it around, that's when this one really shines, and that's why I'm so excited.
Yeah, we'll be able to talk about this card comboing with another one coming up here. I don't know if it's the next one in the list or not. It is actually.
It is!
Yeah, so this card, remember, Iden says, when this upgrade attaches to a unit, give a shield token to it. Now, we go to Iden's ship, right? This is the Corvus, 5 cost, 4/5 Imperial Vehicle capital ship, in Vigilance and Villainy as well. Restore 2. When played, you may attach a friendly pilot unit or upgrade to this unit. And so that means, say you just decide to play Iden Versio on the ground, or maybe piloting something else. She gives a shield to that. You attack into something, the shield goes away. Then you play Corvus, and you can just move Iden either from the ground onto this, or from another ship onto this, and get a shield again. And plus the stats. So I think it's one of the coolest pilot ship combos I think I've seen yet in the set. What do you think?
I would agree. And that's exactly why I'm so excited to build with it and play around with it. And when you think about how versatile that Iden is, a lot of times when you're playing blue, you are a little bit short on units at times because you're trying to have a good removal suite when you're playing Vigilance. And what that Iden does is it allows you to either continue to generate pressure in, say, the space zone as an upgrade, right? If you start with the old school Inferno 2-drop, and then you throw, the +3/+3 and shield on it on turn 3, you can generate a lot of pressure early. Or maybe, you need to contest on the ground. If you deploy her on the ground where she's just a 4/3 shielded, I say just a 4/3 shielded, but a lot of times, that can buy you enough time where you can get a trade with the shield and then trade into something else. So you create the 2-for-1. Yeah. There's just good versatile value. And then when you combine it with this, where now you can start moving upgrades and shields all around the place. And this also has Restore 2, which feeds into your game plan. I just want to play with these so bad.
I think some new avenues for Iden as a leader, too, are really opening up with this. It's very, very awesome. I love the reveals from this week. We haven't even gotten to ours yet. Here's one of the ones that is very relevant to the Vader leader we looked at, though. Go ahead and tell us all about it.
All right. Wingman Victor 2. This is a 2-cost unit that can be deployed to the ground. It is Villainy and Command. If it's deployed to the ground, it is a 3/2 with no additional text. However, the most likely place that you're going to play it as a pilot, if it's played as a pilot, it costs 1, again, Villainy and Command. When played as an upgrade, create a TIE Fighter token. Also provides +1/+1 in stats, and then has the Imperial and Pilot traits. So,
yeah.
1 for +1/+1 plus create a TIE Fighter, which is another +1/+1. That might not seem like a huge deal, right? Because we've seen in this game several times you pay 1, you essentially get a 2/2 worth of stats. But the fact that this spreads the stats across different units, and it kind of replaces the opening. So what I mean by that is that in this sets in particular, when you're talking about for sealed or limited, you might run into situations where you have a bunch of pilots, but you don't have enough units to play them on because they all have to have vehicles. But this one, if you play it as a pilot, it creates a new opening by making that TIE Fighter token. So if you have more pilots, well, then that can go on the TIE Fighter token, right? It kind of replaces that opening itself, which I think is a really big deal.
Yeah, it feeds into itself really, really well. It helps you go wide. And I'll just say, some of the best exploit units are in green, and if you're making a lot of 1/1 tokens, just saying. Let's move on, though, to another great bit of support for the Vader leader. It is Vader's ship itself, Victor Leader. 3 for a 2/4 in space, a little bit more on the durable side, which is great. And then each other friendly space unit gets +1/+1. So that includes all the tokens you've been making, right? They're suddenly all 2/2s. They can suddenly go toe-to-toe with the X-Wing tokens. But I think this is just a great card because I like cards you can drop at any stage in the game. You make a bunch of tokens over the course of things. You play a bunch of units. Just giving everything +1/+1 is strong, right? And again, the fact that this is a little bit more on the durable side for health means that it might be a good target to deploy Vader himself onto. So just more support for this Vader pilot leader. I think the deck is looking good.
Yeah. No real additional notes. It's the old no notes, ship it. It's it's a great interaction. It looks like that Vader deck wants to go wide. I think this is going to be great for that, especially when you consider, and it makes more sense. I know that they said, thematically when they were showing the tokens off, the reason that they said that they didn't put First Order or Imperial on the TIE fighters, for example, is because it spanned multiple eras. But now that I've seen like the Vader leader, I don't think I would want those to get buffed by both this and say Veers, right? Like I'm actually kind of glad that they left some of those tags.
Or the Tarkin leader from set 1. Yeah, that'd be kind of crazy, right? So it is neat. It looks like TIE spam in space is going to be a major threat, which excites me greatly. And here's an interesting little cunning event to go along with all that.
Yeah, I have you now. So this is a 1-cost cunning villainy event. It is a tactic. Attack with a vehicle. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to it during this attack. So it is kind of like a shoot first for space. It is a little bit interesting though, because it's prevent all damage that would be dealt to it during this attack. So if we ever have effects in the future that might deal some other type of damage, right? Like if there's something that says like, if this unit is defending when it's attacked, deal damage or something, technically this card would also prevent that because it would be during the attack. Yeah. So that's one of those things where, I always like to highlight cards that could have additional function or uses in the future based on the wording. But overall, when you look at all of the vehicle units we have in the set, I think this is a natural inclusion.
It's neat that it's interesting that it's in cunning because a lot of that, villainy, space, spam stuff has been green so far. But, we'll have to see what other support comes out for that. But we also got a little bit more support for fighters on the rebel side of things anyway. We've got the Masasi Tactical Officer, 1-cost heroism aggression, 0/4 rebel trait, action exhaust, attack with a fighter unit. It gets +2/+0 for this attack. So I think this is just a great little turn 1 play that your opponent kind of needs to deal with. Otherwise, they're going to end up having fighters coming at them with even more attacks. So yeah, neat little addition to that.
Yeah, I like this just because it's such a low investment. Like, yes, it costs a card, but overall you pay 1 and it's going to go on the ground where, they might have something to remove it. But if they do, then you essentially just gained 4 health because they're not targeting your base. And if they don't, then that you're going to get a bunch of value with this over the course of turns. What I really like about this is, when you look at this set in a vacuum, and we keep talking about how sometimes you're going to want to play those pilots on the ground anyway, even if it seems like a suboptimal play, this could be one of those situations. Because if you just have a ton of space units and you have literally nothing to deal with this on the ground, it's going to stay there forever and you're just going to fall behind. So this is, I really like this card. I think that it's cheeky and it's going to do some neat things for the limited environment.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a good card to pull in your sealed packs for sure. I had a little bit of attention. She was wondering about what the next card is going to be, I'm sure, which is the last one I think we've got for the reveals that are not ours. Is it Tantive 4?
I believe you are correct. So Tantive 4, this is a 7-cost space unit. So again, anytime I see 7 and heroism, which is what this falls into, I think of Han 1, but I think this has other uses as well. This is just heroism, so 7-cost space unit, just heroism, 5/7 stat line. It is a rebel vehicle capital ship. It also has Sentinel, and when played, create an X-Wing token. So you could say, well, it's just, a 5/7, but it's really more like a 7/9 that also gives you a 5/7 Sentinel like side to it. This for an uncommon, I think this is going to be kind of a house in limited, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, it is a bomb for sure in limited, where you play this, a 5/7 Sentinel is going to be really, annoying for your opponent to deal with, and then getting an X-Wing token that you can put a pilot on, aside from that, or even putting a pilot on Tantive 4 and making it even bigger of a Sentinel. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. If you're playing heroism, you're probably going to want to put it in there because it's just going to feel good to play. Definitely. Okay, Charmer, it's time to reveal our 2 cards that have never before been seen. Great support for 2 things we've already talked about today. I'm so excited about it. I'm going to let you take this first one here because you're more of the Vigilance player anyway. So tell us all about the Interceptor Ace.
Interceptor Ace. This is a 3-cost unit. It can be deployed to the ground. It is a Vigilance and Villainy. If it is deployed to the ground, it is a 2/3 with Grit. However, you can pay that same 3 resources in Vigilance and Villainy to attach it as a pilot. If you do, the attached unit gets +2/+3, and the attached unit also gains Grit. The traits are Imperial and Pilot. And when I play my Vigilant stuff, especially on the Villainy side, I try to play Iden mostly because I just really like her as a character. But I will say, I see this card as an absolutely phenomenal addition to Kira.
Yes.
The ability to just give the attached unit Grit when you're already maybe doing some of that self damage, but also making them a bit more durable with the shields means that this could be a really like big, powerful swing, right? Like, yes, it's a +2/+3 in stats, but if it's something that's got 3 damage on it, well, now that turned into, +5 attack for this 3. So I think that this card is very, it's sneaky good for a common. And that's the other thing I want to highlight. This is a common. So when you're playing in your limited environments, you will have to kind of keep an eye out for this. It's also a great way, we talk about all of the indirect damage in this set. It's a great way to turn that on its head, where if your opponent hits you with, an indirect damage effect, you can pile a bunch of stuff onto a unit and then slap this down to give it Grit and kind of turn the tide back in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the rare finisher cards for blue too, because you have a damaged unit in space. They have, 4 or 5 HP left on your base. Suddenly you play this and you're going to hit them for 4 or 5 damage, right? So this can be one of those kind of surprise finishers, I think, that blue doesn't get a ton of access to. I think it's really good. I think it's good and limited. I think we're going to find a lot of uses for it in competitive Premier play too. I'm very excited about this one. But I'm also equally excited about our other reveal card that's right. And it connects to my favorite leader already so far in the set, which is the green Vader pilot. We have Wingman Victor 3, right? We had Victor Leader and Vader. We have Wingman Victor 2, which we saw gave us a tie token. Now we have Wingman Victor 3, who similarly can deploy on the ground, but this is a 3 for a 4/3, whereas 2 was a 2 for a 3/2. So yeah, decent stats on the ground. Fine, great. Piloting, again, he deploys for 1 as a pilot with Command and Villainy. When played as an upgrade, you may give an experience token to another unit. So it's another great 1/1 with an upside, right? Pay 1 for +1/+1 on something, and then you can give another unit an experience token. So that can be something on the ground. That can be another one of your tie tokens out there. So it's another really great little piece of support, I think, for the whole fighter swarm deck that this Vader looks like it's giving us, just because being able to buff something like that, especially a token, is great, right? I mean, and again, I think just also having the access to a 4/3 for 4 on the ground is nice too, if you need it in a pinch. So another decent versatile pilot card. I love all the support we're getting for Vader here. I'm really excited about this deck.
I think this is another great addition. I can't disagree whatsoever. I think that the 4/3 vanilla, on the ground in a pinch, is fine. But when I think about the explosive potential starts, when you consider starting with the Kijimi Patrollers, and then on the following turn, you could play both Victor 3 and Victor 2 and another 1-drop, if you're running the First Order one, for example, or you could do some combination where maybe you play Victor 3, but you also play Outland TIE Vanguard, right? So that's another 2/1 that could give an experience token. There's so many ways when you're kind of playing that swarm opening that you can go really wide, but also not make the units incredibly brittle either, because the pilots give the +1/+1, and then this one hands out the experience. Or the, Victor 2 it gives +1/+1, but creates another tie for you as well. I will say, as excited as I am for these, I am so happy I already own 3 copies of Bombing Run, because I have a feeling I'm going to need them.
Oh, for sure, man. I mean, Bombing Run is going to be at a premium, right? I mean, it's going to be good for killing a lot of swarm stuff that's not buffed, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Well, we've got Pyrrhic Assault is ready, right? So maybe we've got that too. I don't know. When everything dies, you just take out the other side too. That's protection, I guess. But either way, a lot of cool support. This was a really fun week of reveals because we got to do our own, of course, but we also got to see some really neat archetypes emerge in the First Order archetype, the Luke pilot fighter archetype, and now the Vader pilot archetype. I love that we got Luke Vader as the pilot kind of dueling duo there, and I think this, again, this set just looks awesome. So couldn't be more excited about it.
And even with the new archetypes coming out, we still, we've been saying it since the reveal started, but we still saw support for older decks as well.
Totally,
some great Han 1 cards, great Iden or Kira cards. So just so excited for this set. What else can I say?
Yeah, I mean, set 2 and set 3 were good, but set 4 I feel like is definitely the most hype we've had about the game since the game's come out. I know a lot of people are talking about it too. So let's just get to pre-release season. I want to go play. I want to go play with this stuff. So I'm sure we got to wait a little bit longer for that, but it'll come sooner than you think. I hope it feels that way at least. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the reveals. Thanks for watching, everybody. Join our Discord, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out our Patreon as well. Buy a shirt. And that's all I got to say. Any final words before we close this thing out, Charmer?
May the Force be with you.